And welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I am joined tonight with a guest who I know many of you know and truly does not need an introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyway. I have the distinct pleasure and honor to present Jessica Jones.
Hey. Oh my gosh, thank you for having me here. This is going to be awesome.
Well, thank you for coming on. And I know that your show's been around for a while and that you're known as the Cryptid Huntress. Where did that come from?
Oh my gosh, I am a Bigfoot field researcher. And I've been doing that since about 2011, I guess. I'm on 3 different Bigfoot field research teams. And we've kind of graduated at this point from being Bigfoot field research teams to being all around paranormal research teams, I guess you could say. But yeah, I go out in the woods and hunt cryptids. And I was actually just out in the woods this past weekend with one of my teams doing some research out at a place where we call it the Meadow, in an undisclosed location in the South somewhere. And yeah, so I got the name The Cryptid Huntress from these shows that I do. I am on, I have a podcast. Well, I have a show on YouTube. My channel is called The Cryptid Huntress, where I have live shows throughout the week. And I'm a weekend host at Spaced Out Radio. And before I was at Spaced Out Radio, I was at KGRA Digital Broadcasting, doing a show there every weekend. And somewhere along the line, with some rebranding and stuff, I became the Cryptid Huntress for show purposes, and so that name kind of stuck, and I think it's kind of badass. You know, I like it.
Oh, I like it. And
Thank you.
Like, when I first saw it, I was like, I gotta watch this. Because at first I was like, wait, is she hunting something? Are we gonna get to see? And then I was like, wait, no, this is even better.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I do go out and I do hunt. I don't hunt as in like hunting them for food. Okay, it's not like that kind of hunting. I'm a researcher. Okay, I don't hurt anything out in the field. I haven't been hurt either, but I am prepared to protect myself if needed out there. But yeah, it's more of researching. I should be the Cryptid Researcher is what my name should be.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the same ring to it.
But it doesn't. I know. The Cryptid Huntress sounds way cooler.
It like rolls off. It's like Cryptid Researcher. Okay, you sound like a librarian. And Cryptid Huntress, you're like, oh, yeah, that's an adventurer.
It is. It is. So it's catchy, and also I have a pretty entertaining show, or a bunch of shows. And I talk about cryptids, I talk about my field research, I bring other people on from all over the world that are out there doing the same things that I'm doing. And so it's really cool because I like to bring other field researchers on, and any kind of researchers. I'm into armchair researchers, whatever, anybody that's a Bigfoot, or, hey, Maureen, a Bigfoot dogman enthusiast, night crawlers, I mean, whatever, rakes, any kind of cryptid, goat man. I just like to talk about it. And it's really cool because I actually get out in the field and do that field research, so I can relate to the people that I bring on my shows. And we just end up having a really good conversation, usually. So, yeah, I'm just doing what I love to do right now.
You do, and in full transparency, I'm trying to keep it together and not be fanning out right now because I'm a huge fan of your show. And one of the things I find interesting is I was on a show in the UK doing an interview, and someone said to me, "Have you encountered the Dogman?" And I was like, "The what?" And they go, "You don't know about the Dogman?" And I was like, "Should I?" And I was like, "They're like, it's all over your area." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"I need to look this up." And so then I decided, kind of like you do, I'm sure, when somebody drops something in your lap and you're like, "This sounds really interesting and something I should know." You research it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a little video about the Dogman, found out it's global, found out it likes to come out at night, daytime, heat, cold. And I was like, and I left the video saying, there is no rhyme or reason to where this encounter will happen. So if anyone encounters one, be grateful. But I cannot figure out a pattern to say, this is how I can find a Dogman.
Oh, well, really, you just need to go hang out in the woods. You don't know what you're going to come across in those woods. Now, where you live, you're down in the kind of the Texas area. You guys have something called the Dogman Triangle over there. I'm not sure who coined that term, but there's a lot of Dogman sightings down there. Also, a lot of Goatman sightings as well in that area. So, Dogmen are everywhere. One of the guys on my team, actually, I'm a member of his team, Bob Grumpy Wilson. What's up, Bob? Bob, I'll send him this video. I bet he's asleep right now because it's late. But Bob was on a show called Killing Bigfoot. Okay, but then they changed the name to Bigfoot is Real, and he's the head of the North Georgia Cryptid Researchers, and I'm on his team. Bob is like family. Well, he used to be the Region 5 director of the North American Dogman Project. Down here in the South, that's like the Georgia, Alabama area, I guess. And that's how I really found out about Dogman, was through Bob. I didn't know a whole lot about Dogman. I had never come across a Dogman. It's always good to have contacts at the local sheriff's department. I had someone close to me, let's just say, who used to be a lead dispatcher at a 911 center. Okay. And this person and their friends who worked there and the sheriff's deputies who were there on the force, they would let me know whenever there was like a Dogman report. Okay. And people, when they call in something like that, they're usually not saying there's a Dogman on the side of the road. They say werewolf. Okay. So there were, anytime a werewolf report would come in or whatever, they would let me know. And there was this one spot in the county where we live, and it was in the north part of the county, and people would call pretty, I'm not going to say often, but I mean, more often than not, they'd get a call that somebody was seeing a werewolf on the side of the road up in the north part of the county, in the same area on the same road. Okay. So, so that area was actually one of the reports that was taken was by Bob, my friend, who I'm on his team. Up there. And it's really interesting because a lot of times when there's a Dogman report or a Dogman sighting, it's actually near an Indian burial mound. There are certain things that there's kind of some environmental similarities with a lot of these reports. Sometimes it's by water, like water source. But a lot of times they're seen around these Indian burial mounds, which I find kind of fascinating.
So it makes you kind of wonder if they're like a guardian spirit.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. Well, it kind of makes you wonder, because it's like, well, did they have a connection to potentially like the Native Americans? I don't know. Well, where my mind usually goes is like Anubis, with the ancient Egyptian gods. And Anubis, I think Anubis was a jackal. He wasn't actually a dog. Okay,
Right,
so he was a jackal. But people look at him like, I've always thought he was a dog until I found out he was a jackal. But you think about him, I think he's the god of the underworld.
Right.
I think. And so I've always kind of made a connection between Anubis and Dogman, because it was a jackal-headed man which looks like a dog-headed man.
Right. And it's kind of interesting you go there, and my first reaction when I heard Dogman was the Dogman tribe of Native Americans. And so I was like, did they have a thing like the Skinwalkers? And when I researched, I was like, I found really wasn't a connection between the tribes, but it is interesting that they're around the remains of Native Americans.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's interesting that you just said that, because I had a couple of gentlemen on my show at Space Out Radio on Sunday night, and they had a fascinating picture that was reportedly of a dog man climbing a fence. And this is out in Fresno, California, and it looked like a dog. It looked like a dog, okay, but with human legs climbing a fence, and with barbed wire at the top. And the woman who saw it said, well, she thought it was, I don't know, I think she thought it was a person at first, and then she thought, well, it might have been a bear. It had like a tuft of hair on its back, so it looked like a bear. But when she pulled up next to it, she was in her car, and she started taking pictures of it. It wasn't moving. And so she kind of whistled at it, and the thing just barely moved its head just a little bit and looked at her. And, okay, the consensus was from the gentlemen who were on my show who said that they had analyzed a picture, they'd talked to her. They said it was either, considering where it was trying to crawl into, was an Indian burial ground. Okay, underneath the building that was built, it was like an industrial building built on top of an Indian burial ground. And they said that they thought it might have been a skinwalker. It was either a dog man or a skinwalker that was climbing up that fence. So I don't know. It's just interesting that it could have been either or, because you see artist drawings of what a skinwalker is, and a lot of times it's like a human with the pelt or a skin of an animal, usually right. A wolf or a bear on their head. So it could have been either, but I think it was either or. Nonetheless, it was creepy.
Right, and I find it interesting too, like a lot of people think werewolves are dogmen, and I had a guest on, and she does dogman research in the UK, and she was like, no, dogmen and werewolves are two separate creatures. And it was interesting because hers, if I remember correctly, her story was it was at a school. And so it's like, why would there be a dogman at a school? And she was like, there was UFOs around. And so I was like, I'm like, are we getting into two separate stories? Or, could it be like some cryptids are, from another dimension maybe, or inner earth? I don't know your feelings on that.
Oh my God. Yes. Okay. So being a field researcher, something that we like to say on my team is all roads lead back to ET. Okay. They all lead back to ET. There's usually some kind of ET involvement. The first time I ever went out into the field on an expedition with my team, before I was actually on their team, I had low flying UFOs flying over my head. And my partner and I, one of the guys I was out there with, we went on this like kamikaze mission one night. It actually was like a full day, but we went out. We were trying to have a Bigfoot step on us, basically, and it's a long story. Okay, but while we were outside waiting for we were kind of stalking Bigfoot a little bit, hiding out in the trees, totally camoed out. We had camo on and trying to be still, trying to be quiet for hours and hours and hours. And while we were out there, we had UFO activity right over our heads. And we also we're having all sorts of weird activity, like missing time even happened. And it happens more often than you'd think out in the field when we're doing this research. So yeah, I think that a lot of times when we're having paranormal activity or any kind of activity with cryptids, there's usually some sort of UFO or something going on in the sky in the environment. Now that's just my experience. It doesn't mean it always happens, but it happens a lot when we're out there.
I think it happens probably more than we realize because one, usually we're in a building, so you hope there's a roof on this building so you can't see the sky, so you're protected from the weather. And two, I have a I have a feeling, and you may have the same feeling, is not everybody would see the UFO even if it was in front of them because their beliefs being, yeah, that's not real, would totally filter out. And I love how our minds do this. And so it would disappear from their frame of reference, even though you're sitting right next to them and it's clearly right there.
Oh, I have a story about that. When I was out in the field one weekend, and I know anybody who's watching the show tonight, they're I can tell you, they probably heard this story before out of me, but I came in from the field. I've been out in the field at the meadow with my team, and it was back when I was married, okay, a while back, and my son was I had to come home early because I had a small child at the time. I still have a child. He's just not that small anymore, but he was a little kid, and so I came home. I spent like one night out in the field, and I came home. And when I came home, my team stayed out there at the meadow, and I was in the kitchen making some dinner. I just got back, and my son was in the front living room, and he was like on the elliptical machine, and he was looking cute. He was riding the elliptical machine, and he didn't have a whole lot of clothes on. Okay, so I can't show this video. We actually have a video of something very odd that happened, and my husband at the time was filming my son on this elliptical machine, and he was just having the best time and so happy. And I hear from the living room, "Hey, come in here. You're going to love this." And so I walked into the living room, and my son is on the elliptical machine, and his dad is filming him with his camera phone. And I'm seeing these balls of light flying around my kid. I saw one at first, and I thought, and you can hear me say, "Is that a bug? What is that?" And my son's looking at it the whole time, and he's following it with his finger. And you can see him looking at these two balls of light that are dancing around his head. Okay. And his dad was filming them, but he could not see these orbs. They were orbs. He couldn't see them unless he actually looked at his cell phone, and he saw them on the screen. He couldn't see them with his naked eye at all. And so we're watching these things for a minute. My son's watching them. I'm seeing them. I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at. And about that time, it was about a minute or two, I guess, one of the orbs shoots towards the camera, and you can see it in the video. It shoots into the camera, and it shuts the power off on the camera. Now, he can clearly say, you can hear him saying, my son's dad, you can hear him say, "I can only see it through my phone." So that actually was a wonderful experiment. Okay, that was a great piece of research right there, because it showed me that not everybody can see what I see at all. So my son and I saw the orbs. His dad could not see them at all. And they were bright, very bright.
And I like how you take and call it orb, because there's such in the paranormal field that people are like, you can't call an orb because it's dust or it's a bug. And I'm like, no, there are definitely orbs out there. I've seen them where they're like, will appear here out of nowhere slowly and then just disappear. And it's like, yeah, I don't know any dust that's just going to float horizontally for a while and then decide to go up.
These were actually dancing around my kid. I mean, they had like a consciousness to them. It was almost like a non-corporeal energy. Okay. It was just a ball of light is all it was. And there were two of them, and they were small. They were like the size of ping pong balls.
I wonder too if it was because he was laughing and having fun, because
Mhm.
I noticed when I first started coming from the business world side of, if you're going to be doing something, you better be doing it straight faced, professional, putting your best foot forward. And I would get hardly anything. It's like everything was avoiding me. Then I watched the Tennessee Wraith Hunters on one of their haunted live shows, and they, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Where they hazed one of their new people in the bathroom, and I watched them, and they were having such fun, and I was like, okay, if they can do that, why can't I? And when I started having fun with it, all of a sudden I started getting spirits in camera, seeing apparitions. It's like they all were like, "Oh, hey, he's having fun. Let's come out and play."
Yeah, you know what it is? It's the vibrational frequency that you're emitting, and that's kind of how I looked at it when it came to my son and I being able to see the orbs, and then his dad not. I'm not saying his dad's low vibe, okay, but he might have been low vibe. All right, I'm just putting that out there. I think that it's I know that's terrible, right?
No, it's just it made
Can't
me think
lie.
of the Sukalos memes where
Yeah,
it says, "I'm not saying it,
it
it's an
might have been
alien,
low
but it's
vibe.
an
I'm not
alien."
saying, but he might have been low vibe. Okay. Um, it's just, and it really is a frequency thing. And wasn't it Tesla that said it? Um, this world, our life, like everything is all about energy, frequency, and vibration. And I think that pretty much proved it for me. And so I like to tell my audience, from my experience, the higher your vibe, okay, they say your vibe attracts your tribe too.
Right.
Your vibrational frequency attracts everything to you. It either repels or it attracts, or it does both actually. And so I encourage everybody to have a high vibe, to like not live in fear, to live in love and do things that you love and be around people that you love. Listen, as soon as I started cutting out people out of my life, and I know this sounds horrible too, but once you start healing yourself from the inside and like finding your happiness and cutting out things that don't serve your highest good and all that jazz, you start living on a higher vibrational frequency, and you start attracting things into your life that are supposed to be there, and you start having more profound experiences with the paranormal. Ask me how I know. Okay. I think that has a lot to do with it. And especially when you get like tuned in with your psychic abilities and you start honing in on your advanced human capabilities, like your psychic abilities. Okay. And just using your intuition and opening up your third eye, you start having more success in the paranormal field, and you start having more experiences. Like, and some people may not want to have those experiences. Okay, they may not. I mean, the paranormal can be scary. Cryptids are scary. Now, I personally am the cryptid huntress, so I do invite cryptids, okay, cryptid experiences into my world. I love it. I ain't scared, but it's not for everybody. It's
No,
not.
and that's the beauty of the paranormal field is I love when people will say to me when I go, I'm a paranormal investigator, and they're like, "Oh, you hunt ghosts?" I'm like, "Well, that's not the only thing I do." And I don't actually hunt them. I go and try and communicate with them, but I don't go seeking them out. And it's not like I'm sitting there, with the tool that's looking to target and going, "Okay, there's one. Let's go get it."
It's like
I'm
duck
not
hunt,
trying to trap it.
right? Yeah, I'm the same way. It's not like I'm the cryptid huntress, but I'm not out there to hurt anything. We're actually out there to communicate with the cryptids, namely Bigfoots, out in the field. And that's with one of my teams, at least one of my teams. My original OG team. It's called Enigma Research Group, and we kind of have the mission to just go out there and observe. Okay, observe, put ourselves in the environment, blend into the environment, and try to make contact with the Bigfoots that are out there or whatever. A lot of times we end up not having Bigfoot experiences, but there's ETs in the environment. All sorts of weird stuff goes on out there. Portals. I mean, my team has documented a portal. We sent people inside of it, and they came back out. They disappeared and came back. So
I gotta see this because
yeah.
I've researched portals too, and I had a guest that he has a store at the Columbia River Gorge, and he was sharing about how they have documented where people come in and say we've seen a portal or they seen a cryptid, and I'm like, really? And he goes, and the interesting thing about the Columbia River Gorge, have you heard about this area?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it, please.
So the Department of Energy wrote during World War II in the newspapers, he actually said this is public domain and it's out in the open, that they said we have been trying to create super animals and a super crocodile escaped. So if you come across it, please let us know. And I was like, wait a minute, they did what? And he said, yeah, they admitted because it was a department where they were making the uranium and plutonium for the bombs.
So it's like a mutant. It's a mutated gigantic crocodile. Is this in Texas? Where is this?
No, it's in Washington, Oregon area.
Oh my gosh! So that movie, what is that movie? The alligator movie? That's real
Lake
life,
Placid.
Huh? Yeah, Lake Placid.
But it was interesting because he was pointing out, he goes, because it's in freshwater, the dolphins can't protect it like the military has trained them to do. So they had to create other animals. So they were using crocodiles, panthers, and they were trying to make them super animals so that they would protect the facility from foreign enemies of the U.S.
Oh,
and I was
like soft disclosure to me. That sounds like soft disclosure. You know why? Because you mentioned dogmen earlier, and a lot of the reports that we get of Bigfoot sightings and dogman sightings, a lot of those are at national parks. Okay, government-owned federal land or state-owned land and county-owned land, whatever. But government-owned land. And when I've been given these blind remote viewing targets of cryptid sightings, dogman attacks, things that happen and missing people, things that happen around some of these national parks. A lot of times, I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm given a set of coordinates, and I'm getting all this data about. It's basically whatever I'm looking at is guarding facilities, like underground facilities and stuff, like government agency run facilities underground.
Yeah.
So that would make sense.
Yeah. And the thing that got me was not necessarily that, they're creating super animals, because that was bad.
They're doing that.
But they took the guy who made a trout bigger and reproduce faster and tasked him to now create these other animals, guards, and splicing with and messing with those with the I'm trying to think how to put it, with the Operation Paperclip people that came over. And so it's like, really, we had a guy that was helping with the food shortage issue. We totally could have used that, and we tasked him instead to create what I think was the birth of the cryptids.
Yeah, chimeras. Well, I think that Sasquatch have probably been here since the beginning of time, and I think so have dog-headed men as well, dogmen. You go back, if I'm really into this old world stuff, all the old world history and old world maps, and on a lot of those maps, you see dragons, you see dog-headed men, you see blimmies, you see all sorts of stuff that's not supposed to have ever been here. It's all mythological creatures, but I think that they actually existed, and I think some of them still exist to this day.
And one of the things I find most interesting that always catches my mind, and I always try to look at different aspects of how this could be, is I don't think it's the Isle of Crete, but there is an island in the Mediterranean that has on an archway of a door like a stegosaurus and other dinosaurs perfectly in stone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how could these people carve a dinosaur to where we're looking at it now and saying, that's a dinosaur? I
Because
mean,
they saw it.
yeah. And I'm
They
like,
saw
where did
it.
they see it?
Okay, so that's something that I've been looking into a lot lately too, is our timeline deception. We have purposely been told the wrong timelines and stuff. Like we're not, our history is not what we've been taught. I don't think at all. I think that the years are all messed up. I think the dinosaurs and humans existed together. From all the research that I've been doing, I don't know for sure, but it sure seems that way.
You would love to come to Granbury, Texas. There's a park called Dinosaur Valley, and it's a state park. And they literally, I had a guest that worked there, and she said the official stance and the stance that everyone takes is it's two dinosaur prints on top of each other that's been cemented in rock. But I'm sorry, every time I see it, it looks like a barefoot human print right next to a dinosaur print.
I think I've heard about that. Well, even today, we get reports of velociraptors and pterosaurs all over the country. Namely, actually, here in North Georgia, there is a report of of velociraptors, multiples. A grandfather had taken his grandkid out to walk on some trails, and that's where I do some of my Bigfoot research, is up in the North Georgia mountains.
I think it's actually in Glen Rose. I think I misspoke. Not Granbury, Glen Rose. Granbury is something else.
I'll have to look into that some more. That's really cool.
There's
dinosaurs, man.
Too.
Yeah, there could be dinosaurs walking amongst us today. I mean, the mountains are so vast, and there's so many caves and caverns, and I mean, people always wonder, like, where do the Bigfoots go during the day? Where are all the Bigfoots? There's a lot of mountains. I mean, the Appalachian Mountains, first of all, are the oldest mountain range in the entire world. There's such a variety of strangeness in those mountains, from cryptids to possible modern day dinosaurs to feral people. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Up there. So it can be a little dangerous, but exciting all at the same time.
Oh, that's the draw to it.
Yeah, right. And portals. That's right, Amy. And portals too. There's portals up there in them mountains.
So I'm curious, when you said your team, when you sent people into a portal and they came back, what was their experiences? Did they remember being on the other side, or to them, did they just walk in and walk out?
Okay, so this is the story. So the night that I was at home, I went home early. My son was having the orbs floating around his head. At that exact same time, almost the exact same time, my team had gone back in, hiked into the meadow. So I was not there. I was at home having my own experience with something paranormal. And the bigger team was out in the field, and they had broken off into smaller teams. And what they had done, they had posted up all around the meadow. Now the meadow is like a couple of acres, 2 or 3 acres maybe, of open land in the middle of the mountains. Okay, in an undisclosed location. And this meadow is just it's beautiful, very dense woods all around it. But it's wide open, and it's like a pasture basically. And you can look up in the sky and you can see the stars on a clear night. Stars everywhere. I mean, it's just gorgeous. And but it takes a while to hike into this place. Okay, like I said, it's in the middle of nowhere. And the big team had broken off into smaller teams. So there are probably about 10, 12, or maybe 15. There was a big group that weekend. A bunch of people out there, and they broken off into teams of 2 and 3. So there was one team that was in the very first, the first part of the meadow when you first walk in. Kristen, Terry, and Dave, okay, were posted up there. And then we had Bob and Tim had gone to the back side of the meadow. Trey and Tony, like some other guys were on the other side of the meadow. I mean, they were all kind of triangulated around the opening of that meadow. And the goal was just to go out there and observe. Okay, just go out and observe. Now, we're not really looking just for like Bigfoot activity. We're out there looking for everything. And like I said, all roads lead back to ET. So there's a lot of ET activity going on, a lot of UFOs, a lot of weird stuff. But to that point, there had never been a portal incident that I'm aware of. Well, all was quiet. And Dave Pardue, he's up from he's from North Carolina, pretty well-known Bigfooter from North Carolina. His group is called Carolina Cryptid Research, or Carolina Cryptid Field Research, I think is the name of his organization. But he was looking through his FLIR, like his thermal imaging device, looking around the meadow, and something showed up in his line of vision, and it was abnormal. And he couldn't figure out what he was looking at. Sorry, plug my phone in there. So he didn't know what he was looking at, but it turned out to be like a cube. Okay, it looked like a square, and you could only see it in the thermal imaging device. And so, it was big. It was like the size of like a garage or like a small shed behind your house, that kind of a deal. And so he thought he was seeing things. So he passed his FLIR over to the next guy, over to Terry, and said, "Hey, can you tell me if you see something weird?" And he looked through it and saw this big cube. And he was like, "Yeah, see this cube? It's in the middle of an open field. It should not have been there. Shouldn't have been there." So they radioed over to the guys across the way, Bob and Tim, and they said, "Hey, can you guys go check this out? There's something abnormal in the middle of the meadow. Go check it out." So Bob and Tim both were former military, okay, also highly trained in remote viewing. As a team, we all learned remote viewing for years together. Super switched on psychically, both of them. And very aware of their surroundings. Both of them are like search and rescue guys, survivalists. So I'm saying that because they're very aware of their surroundings and environmental changes. So they were radioed over to it. They were guided over to where this thing was. All the while, Kristen takes her camera, her thermal imaging device camera, and starts filming it as the guys are walking over to this thing. And they walk over to this cube, and as they're guided over to it, they couldn't see it with their naked eyes. So they guide them over to it, and as they get up to it, their heat signatures disappear. And Kristen has this on her camera. She's videoing it. And they said that when they walked over to it, they didn't know they were walking over to anything other than being guided over to it. And so when they got to it, they said that they walked inside it, not knowing they were walking inside of it. They said that the environment changed. They said it was like walking through a black velvet curtain. The temperature changed, the stars disappeared, and the vegetation on the ground changed completely. So it went from being like muddy and grassy to smooth on the ground. And they knew that something was off. And I believe they might have lost radio contact for a second. They decided to turn around and walk back out. Even though they didn't know they were walking out, they were still just in the meadow. But as they backed up and turned around to walk back the way they came from, their heat signatures reappeared on the video.
That's really cool. And
well, that's not the end. Okay, so as they came out of this thing, you can see the cube shrink down to a smaller size, and then it floats away. So
that actually ties into what I was picturing when you were describing that. Is fans that have watched my show know I sometimes, when I'm trying to relate an idea, will go to TV or movies that can simplify it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever seen Star Trek, the Next Generation movies, their
Yeah.
hollow ship
Mm-hmm.
is square in a cube, almost cube shape, like you were describing, and smooth on the inside. And it's like, as you were describing that, I was like, I think they stepped into a hollow ship. That's why you couldn't see it with the naked eye. And
Yeah.
I'm surprised that the thermal picked it up.
Yeah, well, we call it a portal because we didn't have any other way to describe it, and we were given that as a blind remote viewing target, unbeknownst to us. I didn't know what I was getting as a target for that. After that happened, and a lot of our data, it did have the data that we got out of that target was we were coming up with portal on that. So, but I mean, it could be like a portal to another dimension as a spacecraft,
Right, like Stargate travels, the ships have the gate, the portals inside the ship.
Yeah, it was really cool. Well, and since then, I mean, recently, within the past year, I do believe David Paulides came out with that movie from the Missing 411 series, where he did the movie with the UFOs and stuff in it. And somebody in that movie describes a spacecraft they encountered sounding exactly like what my team experienced out in the field, but just a little bit smaller. It was like a see-through clear cube that was a spacecraft. So, and well, my thing is like, where are all these missing people going out of the national parks?
Right.
And so I think that's kind of what fuels a lot of my research, is like trying to figure out, well, what's going on out there in some of these parks.
I had a guest, and you may know him or of him, George Mitrovic, and he talks about the sine waves and how that aligns and creates energy vortexes. And I can't help thinking, because like the Columbia River Gorge, for example, is in the middle of mountains, so the energy is just bouncing back and forth. So it explains why they're able to appear there, because the energy is perfect, in his words. But I was watching something today, and they were talking about how people were mysteriously falling asleep or dying, and that there could have been fissures from the ground that came up. And I couldn't help but think, yeah, at the earth, the water that's moving under the earth's crust creates enough energy, it's got to come out. And we can't see it. It forms like almost like gateways somewhere, possibly, that these missing people are either, like, not to steal the term from Stargate, but gated to inner Earth or onto a ship somewhere, or taken somewhere off world, or even to another part of the world, and we just don't know it. They don't know it. Their minds may have been wiped. And so, you could have like the show 4400, where everybody came back and was like, no idea where they were, who they were, and then had to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many possibilities, it's hard to say. Yes, the missing people are here. We just aren't telling you.
Yeah, well, I say all roads lead back to ET, but also I think with some of these missing people, I think that it might be not ETs. A lot. Well, I think some of the missing people go missing because they get taken by an animal, or they fall off a mountain, they fall off a cliff or something, or they go in a cave and they're never, they get lost. But here's the kicker. Okay, so when you line up the maps of the Bigfoot sightings around the United States, and then you put that map on top of the map of the mountain ranges of the United States, same thing. Okay, it correlates. Then you line those two maps on top of the map of the missing persons clusters from David Paulides' Missing 411 series. It's a match. It's another match. So it's like three maps match. Okay, it's like the same exact map. Then you put the map of the deep underground military bases and the tunnel systems, it matches those. Okay, so it makes you wonder. It makes me wonder because those missing persons clusters, if they're right on top of where we have deep underground military bases, and if let's just say our government or agencies, and this is for entertainment purposes only, okay, but let's just say if they have access to some sort of portal technology, which I do believe they do. I think they do. Because I've been given that as remote viewing targets before. And they're absolutely real. I just did a show where I had remote viewed some blind targets for my friend Arkeem, who was part of the secret space program, who had information on the jump gates. They're called jump gates, stargates, jump gates to Mars and to Venus that are out of California. And I absolutely, I think I can pretty much say with certainty, I can't say with 100% certainty because it's remote viewing data, it's just data, but it did indicate that they could actually really have portals and jump gates going to these different planets. Okay. And these are projects that our government works on. So, but who's to say that they're not taking people with these portals and portal technology, or even using cryptids, and Lord knows what's happening to these poor people.
Right, because I mean, in one aspect, we had the Department of Energy admitting in World War II to creating some cryptids, and now it's in the world we live in, like the Miami Mall incident you remote viewed. It's, I can't help but sit there and look at everything and go, yeah, why does this have the feeling of being A, a false flag possibility, or B, something our military black ops, like beyond black ops groups are messing with and trying to set up, like Project Bluebeam and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, that had some sort of psyop written all over it, actually. With that data, I thought it was really funny because that data, when I was remote viewing it, like as I always say, these are blind targets, so I'm just getting data, and what was some of the data that came into my head, like I channel with songs. A lot of music will like pop in my head, and I'll write down the lyrics that I'm hearing. And on this particular target, I wrote down Tupac hologram. Okay, so that was, I think it was at Coachella. I don't remember exactly, but at some point there was a concert where Tupac walked out on stage and was performing, but he had passed away years before, a long time before. But his hologram was up there performing, and so I thought that was interesting when you're analyzing that data. No, Tupac was not at the mall. Okay. Yeah. But that's how remote viewing works, is like my brain is trying to make sense of what I'm seeing. You're not trying to make sense of anything that you're seeing when you're remote viewing, but that's what I saw. So I wrote it in a little box that's called AOL, analytic overlay. I wrote that in a little box and I just kind of left it there, and when going back and analyzing the data, that factors in. Okay. I'm seeing a man-made hologram for that target.
I think what it is I don't necessarily do remote viewing, so I may be wrong in this, but I'm thinking when you're in your situation, you were saying like Tupac hologram, it was something that your mind said, okay, when she comes out, she's going to look at this and know exactly what we're talking about. And so it's something your mind created to trigger your memory. And so I think that could be why the image shows up that way for you, is because it's something that'll trigger your mind to go, oh, this is what I saw.
Exactly. I'm just pulling information like out of the matrix, basically, and just writing it all down. There's like a process, there's stages, there's charts that I write out, and everything that pops into my head, into my senses, it's just a bunch of sensory data. And with that, I mean, there was a time where I was given a target. I didn't know what this was, but it turned out one of my teammates had lost her dog. And and so she gave me she gave the whole team coordinates. They were panicked and their dog had run away. And I didn't know because it was a blind target, but I was picking up on all this chaotic energy. And for my stage 3 drawing, my sketch, it like I drew a map that was just all over the place. Like it was something had just run from side to side all over the place. Turned out it was their dog. But I was channeling, I kept hearing, there's a rap group called Dead Prez. Okay. They were real popular back in like the 90s and 2000s. And I kept hearing that Bigger Than Hip Hop song. And the part that I heard was about a wolf cry. And so I was writing down the lyrics. It turns out the dog's name was Wolf. Okay. Aww. And the dog was lost. And they said, with all the data that I got, I was actually writing down different places around the town. Like Samantha told me that she actually located her dog from my data. They were able to they actually found their dog because of the landmarks that I had written down.
And it kind of makes sense too why you said that your drawing, the map was all over, is because dogs travel, more freely than we do. We confine ourselves to paths or roads where dogs are like, I can cut through this fence, I can go under this fence, I don't have to worry about this boundary.
It was zigzag. It was like just a zigzag drawing all over the place. Like it was going from side to side and all over. And but I love remote viewing. It's like my favorite hobby. Okay, I love doing it. And it feels good to be able to help people when it comes to stuff like that. Now, I'm not just helping people find missing pets, and I don't usually do that. But as my team, because remote viewing takes a lot out of you. It really does. It's very draining. I do enjoy it, and I really enjoy being able to get like blind targets of like cold cases and missing people. Because like I said, I don't ever know what I'm getting, but I know that if the head of my team sends me a high priority target, it's usually a missing person. And I need to stop what I'm doing and go sit down and do that target. So,
right. We're getting close to the end of the hour. And I still have a couple of questions that came to mind. Do you have time to answer them, or do you need to go?
Yeah. No, I've got time. Ask away.
So I'm kind of curious with you, with your remote viewing and curiosities, like you're saying with cold cases. Have you ever read like a conspiracy theory, like say JFK or Hitler or any of those, and sat down and said, I'm going to remote view this and see if I can come up with the truth?
I mean, I have remote viewed some very interesting things. Yes, absolutely. And there was one thing that I remote viewed, right? It was actually it was around the time of the last election. I did some remote view. I don't really want to go there right now. Okay. Because it's super like political stuff, but yes, let's just say yes, I have, and it was pretty on point. So yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's why it's dangerous being able to remote view. Okay, it's also dangerous. I mean, I've gotten a proverbial knock at my door for remote viewing the moon landing, Apollo 11. That was the only time I've ever been contacted and told to keep my mouth shut about something. Okay. And it was in a very nice way. I wasn't like threatened per se, but it was a stern warning. So it's a real thing. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing though. It's beautiful being able to do this, but I also appreciate my life, and I'm not suicidal. Right.
Which brings me to the second question, is because I know in talking with other remote viewers, it's a two-way mirror, and so people can remote view you. Do you have any methods of blocking that you know of, and can say, hey, not tonight, guys, you're off?
Well, yeah, I always encourage everybody to put up an energetic shield. Okay, pull on. Some people can call it the armor of God. All right, but basically, it's just put on an energetic protective bubble around you at all times. That's just important from the time you get up to, even when you're asleep at night. Imagine, a light around you guarding yourself and your home and your kids and your cars, whatever, your whole property, everything around you and all your loved ones. Just always live in the light and protect yourself. But yeah, there's a process. We have processes in remote viewing. It is a process, every mode of remote viewing, and it's all about protecting your energy. And it's so funny because like the things that we're taught in remote viewing are so relevant with just everyday life. Like I use remote viewing in every aspect of my life at this point. It's some guy told me one day, he's like, I would hate to date you. He's like, it would suck. He's like, you can't get anything past you. And it is kind of true with remote viewers. I feel like I turn it off though. Like I don't like hearing people's thoughts and stuff.
Actually, it's kind of funny you say that because I would be the type of person that goes challenge accepted.
Yeah. Well, that's something that we're taught. And like the person who taught me remote viewing, he is very, very particular and very strict. Like, you only teach the people that you trust the most and stuff. So that's, people ask me, and like, I've never said that publicly, I don't think, but it's true. I've only taught one person remote viewing. People ask me like on the regular, like, are you going to start teaching classes? And see, there's different modes of remote viewing. And there's a lot of people who remote view, say they remote view, but it's not the same kind of remote viewing that I do. It's not like sitting down and just like psychically connecting to something. The type of remote viewing I do is the same type of remote viewing the military uses. And it's a process. It's a scientific process, basically, with a bunch of data and stuff. So, right. Yeah, I'm very particular because what does Spider-Man say? They're like, or Spider-Man's uncle or somebody told him, they said, with much power comes great responsibility. Yeah, I mean, it's very intrusive. Remote viewing is super intrusive. I mean, you can, in the wrong hands, I tell you what. You can do some spying.
Oh yeah, but I was just thinking when you were saying like, people saying I wouldn't date you because I couldn't get away with anything. I was like, that's what I was meaning. Challenge accepted is going. I bet you I could still surprise you.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, probably. Like, nothing surprises me anymore. Okay, nothing. We live in such a wild world. We really do. I actually think that I've caught myself remote viewing myself before.
Really?
I know, right? It's so weird. Yeah, when I was younger, and I was wild and free. I didn't have a kid back then. I was single and ready to mingle. I mean, I'm single now too, but it was back when I was young. Okay, and I was learning remote viewing, and I remember waking up in the middle of the night and I was seeing all these like sparkly lights and stuff and in the corner of my room, and I thought, man, that's so cool. What is that? Because I was used to seeing ghosts and having ETs in my house and weird stuff. But I saw that and I kept feeling like there was somebody watching me. But it was pretty. It was like a beautiful, like sparkly light over in the corner of my room. And later on, I do believe I determined that was me remote viewing myself in the future. So that was me in the future, going back to the past, remote viewing myself. So it had not even happened yet. Yeah, right? It doesn't make sense, right?
Actually, surprisingly, it does to me.
Yeah.
But I have a different past than most people do, so it's probably why I'm like you. I'm not surprised as much by some of the things going on, but I still like to try and see if I can surprise and pull off something and be like, yeah, I didn't see that coming, but I'm glad I got it done.
Yeah, I'm learning that time is only an illusion too. So that's something important that I'm beginning to learn. It's all an illusion. I think we live in a simulation sometimes. It gets so confusing.
Oh, I think we do too, and I love the quote unquote matrix glitches that they happens because it's like you see something and you're like, wait a minute, I've seen this before, and you're like, wait, something's changed, and it's like I can't help but think, okay, this is like the movie. What has been altered? Where? What?
Oh,
And it's like you start looking around and going, what's different?
oh, have you? Okay, so I've heard a new theory this past week in regards to the Mandela effect. And, because in my opinion, like, I think the Mandela effect, I mean, I was thinking it was like a timeline shift. We've all shifted timelines and or I just think it's timeline shifting. But there are people who've been putting out this theory, and it's all over. It's on like TikTok and Instagram, so it's true if it's on those. No, but but these guys are talking about how they believe that it could be that it's like a mass agreement by like big corporations and stuff. Like, let's say like Chick-fil-A is my go-to, okay? Because I remember Chick-fil-A being spelled C-H-I-K, and I live in the South, so we got Chick-fil-A's down here. It's a fast food joint, but it was spelled C-H-I-K-F-I-L-A, Chick-fil-A. One day I just noticed it was C-H-I-C-K filet. I was like, man, why did they change the name of this? I loved the way they spelled that before. And then I started realizing that other people were like, no, it was C-H-I-C filet. And so it was just weird. And you go back to the website of Chick-fil-A, like I've been to the headquarters of Chick-fil-A before, okay? It was C-H-I-K. I know it was for a fact. In my memory, it was C-H-I-K. But it's C-H-I-C-K filet. Well, some people are saying, well, it's just like an agreed upon change. It's almost like they're seeing the controllers or whoever are seeing what they can get away with. And if they can trick us, and it's not a timeline change at all now, but I don't know. People are like, well, what about Nelson Mandela though? It's named after Nelson Mandela. And him, some people remember him dying in prison back in the 80s or 90s, whenever that was. And then other people, we see now he's alive today, or he was alive. And I'm like, well, I mean, then you get into the whole concept of like human cloning and stuff. Like maybe they are tricking us. I don't know. Maybe I should remote view Nelson Mandela.
Well, what'll really get you is talking about the Mandela effect. Is a lady I was watching it on TikTok said the company brand name changed, and she wrote them and they said no. She found a receipt where the name was different. And she said, and she was like, it really was different. And so it begs the question of the Mandela effect. Is it being portrayed by the companies on their own employees and it's filtering out to the consumers? Or is it, who is pulling this off? And I had to say that I was having a friendly argument with a friend from Britain because we were talking about Mandela effect of the Looney Tunes. And he said it's Toons. And I said, no, it's actually tunes, like music tunes. He goes, that doesn't make sense. I was like, I know it doesn't make sense, but it's what it always was. And I watched old like beginning ones, and I finally figured out though why they call it TUNES is because it came from Merry Melodies. And then they changed it to Looney Tunes, and so they didn't want to lose the musical element, so it kept tunes. But yeah, it's amazing how we have all these things in our lives that we swear by, and it's like, nope, never happened.
I mean, it could just be somebody's just hitting a button, changing the program.
I think so.
I don't know. I honestly don't know what's going on these days. But hey, I'm here for it. I'm having fun. They're definitely keeping all the conspiracy theorists running around in circles. Okay. And by conspiracy theorists, I mean us realists. Okay. The realists of the real out here who are trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And also just going with the flow, because I don't know. And that's another reason that I think the remote viewing stuff is getting popular now, is because people are looking for an alternative way to like find the truth. People are not going to tell us the truth. The people in charge or whatever, we have to go with our gut. We have to figure these things out ourselves at this point. And so that's why I like remote viewing. I don't have all the answers, but we can get somewhere with it.
I actually just came up with an interesting possibility to explain the Mandela effect.
What's that?
It's a psyop.
I know, right?
They're making us think and divide the people over, no, you're crazy because it's never been that. Making us think we're crazy. And we're not. But it's like a game for them. Like you're saying, somebody flicked something and they're like, okay, now we're going to make the company this and nobody's going to know we changed it, but we're rebranding and nobody's ever going to notice.
It's so weird. I mean, it might have something to do with time travel and stuff. I don't know. And I know the whole timeline thing. Okay, so with the timeline stuff, I'd mentioned that I encourage my viewers and people that watch my shows a lot of times to just get on your highest vibrational frequency, live in love, don't live in fear. Okay, because when we live in fear, we're easily controlled. Okay, people who live in fear are more easily controlled. And so I try to do things with like a happy heart, having fun, lightheartedly, because I'm striving for my highest timeline. And let me tell you, I have clawed my way out of hell the past few years with my life. Like things are going on in my life. And I didn't have an option really, but I knew that I needed to go for my highest timeline. I feel like I got something to do here on Earth right now. And I think it involves like helping people and sharing my stories and stuff. But I wanted to get on my highest timeline. And let me tell you, everything, like, once you get on that time, your timeline, you go towards that high timeline of like wish fulfillment and love. Everything starts magnetizing to you, and you start imagining. This is how you do it. You imagine like the life that you want, and a beautiful life, like not a life of like suffering and darkness and whatever the controllers, I guess you can say, want us to be in, like all this ugly architecture that we're living in and stuff. I'm imagining like beautiful, luscious green environments and people around me that are in my soul tribe that I love, and like just all the good things. Okay, all the good things, because I want to be on that timeline. I think that there's like a concerted effort to keep us on a lower timeline. And right. I don't know, maybe that CHIK fillet was on a lower timeline. Okay, maybe CHIK is on a higher timeline. I don't know. So that's why I'm just going with the flow.
Yeah. And I find this interesting too. Amy commenting, a man found a 1923 penny and the government took it from him because they were not made. What is the harm in a 1923 penny?
Well, it wasn't supposed to exist. Well, that's the same as Mel's Hole. That Mel's Hole that was out west. That was another one of my remote viewing targets, and that's based off of a call-in that Art Bell had on his show from a guy named Mel. And he had an endless hole on his property. And when I remote viewed that, my friend Tanya had remote viewed it as well. And our data was like wormholes, time travel, teleportation, radiation. And the government seized that land. Well, what was the government using it for? And they were talking about how there were like coins that were never made that were found by that hole or something. There's something very similar to what Amy was just talking about. Things that weren't supposed to exist were there around that hole.
Right.
So,
and the girl and her gong, 1111.
Hey, Maureen.
That's the one that I was talking about. The fruit of the loom. Cornucopia. Yes. It was on the receipt showing the cornucopia. And they said they've never used cornucopia. And I was like, I remember the cornucopia.
She found a T-shirt that had the cornucopia on it.
Yeah.
She did. Okay, that's why I think it's so important to like. I went to my grandparents' house. Okay, like they both passed away. They had like huge libraries, big bookshelves full of old books. I didn't care if I got anything else from my grandparents after they passed away. I just wanted those books. Okay, like historical books,
Right.
books about the founding of America and stuff. And I wanted to have that because we may not have those things one day. You know, like with history being changed. You know, the computers. You know, I mean, everything could be lost with one hit, like one push of a button, with everything being online. And so I think it's important. I know that doesn't have a whole lot to do with the Mandela effect, but it kind of does because these things are like written. We have written books showing the history of stuff. So, I mean, if I were to dig through those books, I wonder, because some of these books were written in like the 1800s, 1700s. I mean, they're old, some of them. And makes me wonder if there are Mandela effects. I can go and look in those books that have been untouched by anybody for years.
Well, I'm sure there is because it's just recently that we've become aware of it. And there's actually a question. I'm trying to get it to come up. Here we go. And Walking Lightly 369 is.
Hey.
She wants to know, or they want to know.
It's a he.
Okay, he wants to know. My apologies. One question about remote viewing. Are there limits or out-of-bound areas or years? Is it narrowed to certain places and years? And are there no-fly zones, like you were saying with the moon?
No. No, there's no bounds. I mean, I don't think there's any boundaries, really. I mean, we're told to stay away from certain places, and that's why I only take targets from people that I trust, that know the protocol. Okay, so yeah, we try to stay away from the moon and stuff like that. That's not stuff that you don't want to go treading where, you know, you could get in trouble with some stuff. And by trouble, I mean like, I don't know. There may be some like programs going on up there or something. I don't know. I'm not a part of it. I'm just a little old, you know, mom from the South down here, just having fun, doing what I do. But there are people that are part of programs, that are part of our military, that are part of our government, that you know, they're not supposed to be doing stuff like that. So I have a healthy dose of respect. So I don't go and do whatever they don't do. So basically, if that makes any sense. But no, you can go anywhere in the future, in the past. You know, time's not just like linear. It's you can go pretty much anywhere. A lot of times if I get like an off-planet target, the numbers are different. Like they usually put an extra number on there, so I'll know that it's off-planet. But that's, yeah. I mean, I've been given plenty of targets that are off-planet, like TRAPPIST-1 star system, and I have done targets on the moon. I have 100%. You know, I have. That Apollo 11 though is touchy for some reason. So I don't know why it's so touchy, but okay.
Probably because it led to something that wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, the timeline of our higher self, the highest frequency. Yes. Yes. And that's like being like healed as far as like shadow work and things like that. I think that it's living our highest timeline, striving for your highest timeline is what I advocate for. Living the life of your dreams, not somebody else's dreams. Okay, yours.
No, you're right, and I like how you do that, and you're respectful with it, and not sitting there and just saying, "Oh, I can look at this, so I'm going to go look at this and this and this." As you're doing it responsibly and carefully.
Well, I have no reason to go remote view into people's personal lives and things like that. Like I don't want to at all. Ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody.
Yeah, no, I was meaning like.
But yeah,
Saturn or
Yes.
Pluto and being like, what's out there? And just,
Yeah.
like flippantly saying, yeah, because I can. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, you really don't need to be.
Yeah, it could definitely be, it could get dangerous. So, yeah. And Linda, the most that I get for a target are 8 numbers. I just get 8 numbers. I don't get the name of anything. I get numbers. And it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's all I get. And all the coordinates, it's called coordinates, and that's all I get. And they're all different. It's different combinations of numbers, but it's 2 sets of 4. That's all I get.
So I'm curious if you were one day wanting to talk to a loved one again that's passed on, would you remote view them to talk with them, or would you be like more respecting of saying, you're on the other side, you're over there, let me just communicate a different way?
Yeah, I would not remote view that. I would. Well, I've been visited by my loved ones, sitting on my bed at night when I wake up and stuff. So, no, I mean, I would, if I wanted to do that, I would just kind of psychically tune in to it. Remote viewing is such a process, man. But I would psychically tune into that if I wanted to. But I mean, I feel my family's and my friends' presence around me all the time. I really do, watching over me and stuff. So, I mean, I don't encourage them to be around me all the time. I think they got other stuff to do. You know what I mean? But probably they got more important stuff to do than watch my boring self over here. But yeah. No, I've lost a lot of very close loved ones, a lot. Okay, and including like my brother, my best friends. I mean, one of my very best friends just passed away about a month or 2 ago, and I mean, I've lost a lot of people. So yeah, if I ever want to tune in to them or talk to them, I just talk to them, because they're always. I mean, it's just they're here, they're right here somewhere. So.
And
they're like a dimension away.
For the loss of your friend.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's death is a part of life. And to me, I feel like when we pass on, we're just leaving these meat suits behind and like we're free. Okay. It's like our energy's free. I do not fear death at all. And I think it'd be a beautiful thing. Of course, I'm a mom. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. But it's not something to be feared in my world. That's why I'm a cryptid huntress, I guess, because I don't have a lot of fear.
No, and I agree, because coming from a metaphysical background, like you were saying, you feel them around and talk with them through other means. To me, it's like I process death really differently. As I'm just like, okay, you're just, so I can no longer hug you or feel, the embrace, but I can still get hugs and talk to you this way. So you're not really dead. You're just not on the physical plane anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. They're always, I mean, we just graduate, back to, I think that we're here for an experience, honestly. And I don't have all the answers, but I think that we come here for an experience and to learn, and to learn lessons, learn how to be human. Okay. And some of us are not here for a very long time, and some of us are here for a very long time. We've all got different reasons for being here, I think, but ultimately it's to learn to love and to learn how to just be a human. I don't know. I like being a human. All right.
There are days, though.
Yeah, there are days. Like, man, I wish I was a dog man. I'm kidding.
I have memories of traveling by thought, and there are moments where I kick myself for being human, because I'm like, I could pop over and say hi to somebody in 2 seconds flat, and I go and I'm like, oh, I'm still in the meat suit, like you
Still in
say.
this meat
I
suit.
gotta.
I know, right?
I'll be there in a few hours. I'm sorry.
Oh, I love sleeping. I love going to sleep because that's where I talk to my loved ones, even people that I'm not getting along with right now. We work it out in the astral, I think, when we're sleeping. And I forgive you in the 3D too if you guys are watching. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But yeah, it's I love sleeping. I mean, I'm just one of those astral travelers. Somebody in the chat had mentioned astral traveling too. I think Linda. Yeah.
Right.
It's part of being human, and
Yeah.
and it's super interesting. It's super important for us to tap into those gifts too, and to be able to do that kind of stuff
So
because
I
it's who we
actually got
are.
a story about astral traveling. When I was a teenager, late teens, early 20s, I would astral travel so much that they actually took my access away. And my guides told me in a reading, they said, we are suspending your ability to astral travel because you spend too much time over here and you need to have your human experience. Of course, I got it back, but it was like funny that they were like, "Yeah, you're hanging out here too much. You need to hang out over there some." And I was like, "No,
You got a timeout. You got caught by the astral police.
I know. It's like I can't catch a break in any world."
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I don't blame you. It's way better in the astral, I think. But um, yeah, it's hard down here, man. This world right now, we're living in crazy times, super
We
crazy
are,
times. Yeah,
but I can't help but think about Shakespeare though, and I personally I've come to think of Shakespeare as one of the original whistleblowers because all of his sayings, like, may you live in interesting times. Well, where are we? We're living in interesting times. And his life is but a stage. Well, what are we watching? We're watching a movie where we're all actors on a stage
yeah.
in a proverbial Truman show of some sorts for someone.
Mhm. I agree with that, man. Absolutely. Yeah, we're all in one big Truman show. Yeah, I had mentioned earlier somebody could just be pushing a button and changing the script on us real quick. I
And
mean, I've seen the skies lately. Have you seen the videos of the sky? Like, it looks like we're in a video game with like, I don't know, I can't describe it. There's just a whole bunch of weird stuff going on in the skies right now. So,
there is, and I actually came across a video somebody I think sent me on TikTok, and I don't know if it's real or not. So I didn't share it out or promote it or anything, but it got me thinking. And there was like flashing lights from like a storm, and then all of a
yes.
sudden you see this giant shadow of a man, or it could have been a woman, walk across to a building and just disappear. And it's like, and they're like, "Whoa, look at what we caught!" And I'm like, "Yeah, that could be CGI'd, and it could be real. I don't know. I'm not a tech person to sit there and know how to view it, but I was like, just because I couldn't definitely say this is real, I didn't want to put it out there under my name and go, check this out.
Yeah, no,
Because
right?
I was like, yeah, that is fake. I don't want to be known as someone who faked something, but it really
Yeah.
does make you think, though, when you're looking around and you're seeing all these things around and going, you know, when are we going to wake up in a world where what we see is what we see, what we hear is what we hear, what we know is what we know, and all of these psyops are over? All of this, like, double everything is over, and it's like everything that's put to us is real because I'm kind of getting annoyed living in a world where I can't trust even anything that really comes from anyone or anything because everything can be manipulated or, falsified or
Mm-hmm.
changed and altered in some way. And it's like, I miss the world where everything we saw, we knew. And it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
uh,
Imagine being a cryptid field researcher and people sending me videos and stuff, like not being able to tell now, like what's real and what's not, just from even the cryptid perspective. I mean, if we didn't already think it was crazy enough, but yeah, now we've got like, I mean, my son watches this video game thing where it's like the president's all playing video. It's a show on YouTube, and occasionally I'll catch him watching it because it's got cuss words. So like I don't let him watch it usually, but I'll walk in the living room and he'll be watching it, and it's like Obama and Biden and Trump, and they're all playing video games with each other, and it's hilarious. Okay, it is funny, but it's their voices, but it's not really them, obviously. But it makes for an entertaining show for sure.
for sure.
But it's just weird. I mean, anybody can take like AI programs and do whatever they want. I guess
Now
that's really scary.
It is, and they're talking about like even with this show, they could take our voices
Mm-hmm.
and run it through software and make a completely different episode. And who's to say which was the real episode?
Yeah, I know. I just found out about people. Oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. But something, I don't know if it's Chat GPT or whatever that stuff's called, where people are like, people are writing books. Let's just say I've heard rumors of this. I'm not pointing any fingers to anybody, but people are like writing books off putting information into these like programs, and like they're writing their books for them and stuff. And then these people are like publishing books off of like a computer program, writing their book for them. Like, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but yeah,
No,
we're in a weird world for sure.
although in my situation, it might actually get my book done faster if I was to ever write one because everyone's asked me to write a book, and to be honest, the farthest I've gotten was a file named My Book. I haven't
Hey, at
even
least
got
you got
the first
started.
page.
Hey, that's like the hardest step is like writing the first paragraph, right? Or like the first sentence. I mean, I need to write a book. I've been getting that for years, and I am completely capable. I have a degree in English literature. Speaking of Shakespeare, I love to write. I used to love to write, so it wouldn't be a whole lot for me to write a book. And
Yeah, I mean, and I look at people like George Mitrovic. He's written already almost 400 books, I think, or 600 books. And I'm like, man, how do you have so many books written and I can't even get one word on a piece of paper to get started?
you just got to start. You just got to start. It'll flow. It'll flow. Just you got to get on the frequency of writing the book, right? Get on that frequency,
And
it'll start flowing.
I guess my dilemma too is I'm like, I've always said, like, boy, if anybody lived through my past, it's like a soap opera. So I'm like, well, when would a soap opera be a book?
Hey, people love drama. Okay, I've learned. I don't do drama, but there are people that make a living off of drama. Okay, a lot of people. So people might like it. I don't know if it's good drama. There's an audience for it.
There's probably there probably would be drama in it, but it's like
There's an audience for everything. I'm sure.
I'm the type of person, I'm like, I'm the last person that wants to get involved in any drama. And then what'll happen 3 minutes later is drama's knocking on the door saying, hello, we're here.
Man, it chases me everywhere I go. I just try to run from it. I don't know what the heck. It follows me. So I stay out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No drama, mama.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm looking at the time and I'm noticing it's getting really late, especially for you on the East Coast. So
Yeah.
I think if there's no other questions, Linda, you're asking, did he stop doing his art? Who are we talking about? Did I miss
She
something?
may be talking about Amy's dad, maybe. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, I think they are.
Yeah.
I love when the chat room starts having their own conversations, and I'm like walking in the middle of a conversation.
I know, and I've got my friends in here tonight. Andreas, Maureen, and Amy are in here. And Linda's my new friend. Hey, Linda. So, yeah, I'm so excited to hear tonight. Thank y'all for being here. This has been a lot of fun, Michael. Thank you for having me tonight.
This has been, and I look forward, and hopefully with your busy schedule in mind, we can have you on again.
I'd love to come back anytime. You let me know. I'll be here.
All right. And so, normally I will send us out by coming up with some witty phrase, and I don't know. I'm just feeling like you're a podcaster. Well, let's let you send us out with some pearls of wisdom.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. Well, first of all, everybody, y'all come see me over on my channel too, the Cryptid Huntress over on YouTube and on Spaced Out Radio on their YouTube channel. Y'all come see me. I got shows every Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And just remember to keep your vibrational frequency high. Join the high vibe tribe, y'all. And be safe out there. We're living in such crazy times. And it's hard to trust anything that we're seeing with our own eyes. So drink water. Get a filter for your water, okay? I know this is terrible. You just ask for a tidbit of some wisdom, y'all. Get a water filter, please. It takes the fluoride out. Okay, please do that.
Oh, that's actually a good thing.
Get you an Alexa Pure Pro like I have, okay? And decalcify these pineal glands. I don't think anybody watching your show is going to have a calcified pineal gland, okay? Because everybody is super high vibe over here, just watching this and listening. But just take care of yourselves, everybody. Take care of yourselves and each other. And we're going to get through this together. Whatever's going on in the world, we're going to make it. Okay.
And just to clarify, if you do want to catch Jessica's shows and stuff, they're all linked into the description. So it's all there for you. So you don't have to go looking hard or far. But thank you for that. And yes, I use a Kangen water machine and a Berkey water machine. So yes. I double it.
Okay. That's like the best piece of advice. I love to always say that. Just be careful how much fluoride you're taking in, okay? Because we need to have these third eyes wide open right now.
Oh yes.
The more open you are psychically, and the more like you're tuned into that, the less easily controlled you are. And that's the mic drop right there.
Can't think of a better way to send us out than that. So from everyone at my show and Jessica's, we wish you all good night.
Bye, guys.